Welcome to What's Your Story, where we, Jaime Marco,
and Stan Brown,
delve into the extraordinary lives of everyday people.
Listen in as we uncover the unique tales that shape who we are,
one story at a time.
Hey, let's get ready to explore today's story.
Let's do it.
It's recording in progress.
We're recording.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. So, Dad, good to see you.
Hey, listen, always a pleasure to be seen.
What are you most excited about for our recording?
Well, I think what's nice is we're living in a world of a lack of perceived connectivity. Well, really, in essence, we're all connected. And I think really it's the stories of our individual lives that really bring us together. And how does one identify with that? It's like kind of walking in someone's shoes for a mile. So if they share with us, it gives us a much better perspective of what they've been through, what they're going through, and how we can maybe relate some stuff to our own lives and maybe have a better understanding.
I love that. You're so insightful. So insightful.
Well, you know, it comes with a few decades of life. Hey, you're on the way. You're on the way. Don't stop now.
Oh yeah. It's funny. So, we went and saw Wicked recently, the play Wicked Broadway play. And so we're listening to like
You know what they call that? You know what they call that in Boston?
What?
Wicked pissa. It's a Boston expression.
I get it. I caught on. So we went and saw it, and it's about how the Wicked Witch became the Wicked Witch.
So it's a prequel.
Yes. So it's like the story of her, and like, so her name is Elfie or Elphaba, and then Galinda, the Good Witch, the one that we see in the Wizard of Oz, right? So you see like the Wicked, I think she's like the Wicked Witch of, which one dies, the East or the West? Ding.
The one with the black outfit and the green face.
She lives first. Her sister dies first, but it tells you like the whole story of them, like how
I got you.
like her relationship with her sister. But it's really cool because it's like the story behind why she was wicked, and that premise in itself was so cool because it's like, listen, like I have a friend who once told me, we should be curious, not furious. And that is the thing, like with the Wicked Witch, we were all like, oh my gosh, she's horrible, she's miserable, like she's just evil. But there's a story behind why she turned out the way.
Well, you only saw a single frame in her life experience.
Yeah. So it was really cool. And it just was a reminder of why like something like this is so important, because it tells us the stories behind people, excuse me, and who they are and how they operate. And I just thought it was like really cool. So
let me ask you a question though. Based upon that, excuse me?
Did you hear that ding that just went off?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, go ahead.
Was not my pacemaker. You took your 8-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. What was her fresh perspective on that? Just entertainment, or was it something a little bit deeper?
I didn't ask. Opportunity missed.
You didn't. You didn't ask?
No. We were living in we were actually this is so silly. So we were in England, and you're in the theater there. I've never experienced this before. And you're sitting in your seats pretty close, and you you're hungry. It's a long show, and especially if you're like an 8-year-old.
I'm always hungry. It's okay.
Yeah, well, and like you want to snack all the time. It's my husband's the same way.
Enough about me.
So in front of you, there's a QR code, and it says scan this QR code, and you can order food, snacks, drink right to your chair. And I was like, okay, so it's intermission, and I totally forgot about it. And she's like, I'm hungry. I'm like, all right, fine. So I scan it, and I ordered just like some crisps or chips as we know them here in the US. I ordered some, and I hit send, I hit pay. And I'm not even kidding you. Not even a minute later, she was at my row being like, here's your chips. It was like the Jimmy John's but faster than that. I was like, holy cow. It was such a brilliant idea because not everyone's getting up and clogging the lines, and they literally delivered it to our row, and it was so fast. We were like, oh my gosh. And then hold on, to make it even better, they deliver it in a canister, not like a bag of chips.
Sure, like Pringles.
Yeah. So if you have a bag of chips, what did everybody hear in the theater the whole time? Cronk, 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 cronk.
Oh, sure.
So instead, it's in a canister. So once you open it, it's they're hearing your crunch, but only the people next to you, but you're not making noise as you're eating it.
Can I have that installed on the side of my couch?
I think that was me as a child. Go get me a snack. Get me the remote.
So it's really my invention. Another one I missed.
You
Jeez.
should have patented it, and you didn't get paid. You didn't. And actually, no, it's my fault. I didn't ask for money for it. I should have asked for money for it.
Well, your perspective was a bit different when you were younger.
Yeah, no. It's funny because like when there's a commercial now on television, it's so frustrating to my daughter's generation because they don't deal with commercials, right? So if we watch something that has a commercial, it's so frustrating for that. But like for me growing up, we couldn't fast forward commercials, but it was all about commercials and we actually liked commercials. So it's just
That's
interesting.
why it's always great to get a child's perspective is very fresh when they're young. And we mold it to some degree by our experiences with them, but it's always good to hear from them. It kind of gives us a better perspective of what we were thinking, what we should be thinking sometimes. It's fresh, uncensored.
Yeah, they don't have fear, right? I think like someone once said that fear was false evidence appearing real. And so we all have fear of saying something or doing something, or like, if you're out to lunch with somebody and they've got something in your teeth, like people that don't tell you that you have something in your teeth because they're fearful that they might embarrass you, but yet they're okay with you keeping that stuff in your teeth. A kid would be like, Mom, you've got stuff in your teeth.
Yeah,
Or,
but she won't go on the roller coaster with me.
yeah, well,
That's
that's
fear.
a different kind of fear.
Okay.
Well, and let's face it, are you really going on roller coasters still?
It was just a metaphor, that's all.
Oh.
For the ups and downs of life.
I don't know that I would go on a roller coaster with you anymore. I did as a
I'm talking the Dumbo roller coaster with the little the ears. Woo, 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 woo.
Speaking of which, like all like the social media, they just showed that people are getting stuck on all these different roller coasters. Like, I think it was it Portland, the one that they were stuck upside
The one
down?
that's stuck upside down, sure.
I mean, like, and then someone else just posted a video of them getting stuck on Space Mountain, which obviously you don't go upside down, but
It's,
just,
it's one of two choices. It's either mechanical failure or human failure. It's still failure.
but I
And
mean, like,
someone
yeah, I just don't know that I am inclined to go on any type of ride like that ever again.
until they eliminate failure.
And which you can't because that
Look
tech,
at look at the space station now. They knew there was multiple helium leaks before they left. They can't fix them. They're still stuck up there.
I didn't know that.
Did not know that, eh? Well, I kind of tune myself into the news cycle, which changes every 30 seconds.
It's
Oh,
too
they're stuck
depressing.
up there.
So they're
And
like,
you would think there's a helium leak, they'd be talking funny, but they're not. I, sh- I shouldn't make fun of that.
that would almost be like, that would add like icing to the cake, right? Where you're up there and you're like,
Bring me back, bring me back. Let's hope it resolves itself in a satisfactory manner.
yes. Well, let's talk about today. So, um, speaking of like getting out there and getting help or whatever, this concept of the What's Your Story podcast came from wanting to tell stories. And I think what's really cool about it is that both you and I listen to podcasts from celebrities all day long.
Sure.
And that's great. Like, listen, people are fascinated with celebrities. It's why the tabloids are always the fastest growing magazine. It's why people, are tuning in to all those different shows because they want to know what celebrities are doing. But for me, it's really about, yeah, that's fun. And I'm fascinated by celebrities as well, too. But, in our walks of life, you were in sales for 40 something plus years, whatever it was. And the stories of the people that are just in our world and our circles are sometimes even 10 times more fascinating,
Oh,
right?
no, I agree. No question.
Yeah. So what do you think that is? Why do you think there is a disconnect with people wanting to learn people's stories of everyday people versus being obsessed with celebrities?
Everybody wants to be important. They think there's maybe a jealousy factor. They feel the celebrities have achieved the pinnacle of achievement, be it celebrity, be it money, be it houses, cars, things that they can get all the time, what they want. And they envy that success when in essence, often that success is a hollow victory. I think the individual experiences of people, like everyday people, can be a little bit more understandable, more enjoyable, more you can learn more from them only because they happen to us to some degree and they're happening every day
Yeah.
and they're real.
Yeah. It's like a
Does it make any sense?
what's that?
Does that make any sense?
That makes total sense. I think it was funny. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were saying it was the Smart List podcast and they were talking about celebrities. They were talking to David Beckham and they were saying that like he just literally cannot leave his house without people knowing who he is, right? Like that's just his life. And then he had, I think it was 1998, where there, I don't know the full story. Did you watch the documentary, right? So
Oh yeah, yes,
what
yes.
happened in 98? He got like a red card and the whole country turned against him, or what was the thing?
Something happened during a contact, I don't know, with France or something, and he felt the player dissed him, and he came back. He hit the player, did something, jabbed him real hard, and lost the European Championship. I think he got a red card thrown
And
out.
then like the whole country turned
Never,
against
never forgave him. Never forgave him for that. It was something done in a moment of heat. You know, it was a different person, I suppose.
him. Yeah. And so they were
But you
there.
know, but yeah, celebrity to me is such a false god. You know, there's a one thing celebrity can't buy. It's anonymity. It's such a pleasure walking into a supermarket. No one knows who you are. They leave you alone. You've got some quietness to yourself. You give up a lot of stuff. So people don't really appreciate that.
Well, and that's what they were talking about, is that like they're still human and they fail, but your failures are broadcast to the world. Like, can you imagine if any of your failures, or I can't practice my failures or my like, I mean, I've only loved my husband, but if I had been in other relationships, that, you know, if that's broadcast to the world when you're trying to handle it just yourself internally, I just can't even. So they were
Well, I think
talking
you have
about that's
the
different.
whole scope of the human experience. There used to be a guy years ago called Paul Harvey. He would tell a story, not revealing who the people were. And it talks about the failings, the shortcomings, the disasters, the overcoming and becoming successful, whatever. And at the end, he mentioned their name, and he said, and that's the rest of the story. And the stories are fascinating because people, everybody endures their own fair share of ups and downs, failures and successes. It really depends more upon how you react to those and how you go forward.
Yeah, no, it's so true. That's why I'm so excited to talk to the people that we're talking to today, because or even all of them that we talk to on our podcast, because they're all just different stories of that sometimes people don't even know. You know, yesterday I met with somebody who has a very successful business, and we were talking to him about what he's doing now. And then he was like, yeah, you know, back, you know, in 2000, and I think it's 2011, when I was homeless. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I had no idea. Like, I had no idea like that it was even a thing. So yeah. So anyway, I think it's just super cool. You know, there is a CBS reporter, Steve Hartman, who used to do this On the Road segment.
I remember, sure.
And you probably heard of it, where he would, like, him and his photographer would fly to some town, or actually I think that they started with a map. They started with a map. They would like throw a dart or something on a map, find a city in the country. They would go to that country, and at the time open up the phone book there, you know, in that city when we had phone
And
books.
just run
And they
down
would
the names.
find a name, point to it, circle it, go to their house, and just interview them and do this story. And it became some of the most incredible human interest stories. And they would put on the news on CBS. And that's where this kind of came from, where we started talking about, you know, the TEDx talk that I did about everyone's got a story. And when we slow down and start to hear that, we get to learn the most incredible things. And
But they don't tell you the part when they went down. The first 10 names, they were boring people. They had no story. Skip those. You didn't see the final edit.
you know, it's so funny though. So I talk about, you know, this is like my DNA. Like, I talk about this all the time. And I was talking about it in a leadership class. And this girl one time was like, oh my gosh, my sister was one of those stories. And she came back and she pulled it all up and she showed it to me. I'm like, that's so cool. So I felt like a little bit part of pride that I met somebody that was able to do that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm super excited for our guests together today, and all of our guests. And it's going to be amazing of how we spend time just having these conversations, authentic, just organic conversations, talking about them and learning about them. So our first guest is getting ready to enter in here shortly, and we'll have that conversation soon.
I'm getting ready to put on her shoes to walk a mile and see what happens.
If you could wait to leave your chair to walk the mile so we can make sure we record the cast first, that would be preferential.
I've got to press the snack button on my armchair first. I'll try not. I'll try not to crunch too loud.
All right, sounds good. All right. So we are so excited to have our guest together with us today, Emily Meinke. And listen, if you go and Google your name, there's so much that comes up, but I don't like to depend on Google for our stories. And so I would challenge you to do this, Emily. First of all, welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for saying yes. You've got a fascinating story, and we met, you know, just like for by chance. You were in a class I did, and we had like possibly like a 2-minute conversation. And even just that 2 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more. So I'd love to just start off with you like thinking about in 60 seconds or less, which I know is going to be difficult, but tell
Oh
us
my
like
gosh.
about you in 60 seconds or less.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I am from Michigan. I grew up as an elite gymnast, and that's really the basis for everything that is going on in my life right now. I competed on the national level, and through that process, I was sexually abused by Larry Nassar, who everyone knows of as the gymnastics doctor. Um, that news came out in 2016 when Rachel Denhollander published or was part of the article that came out in the Indie Star. And when I read that article, um, my life changed from that day because I realized, which I had known all along, but I realized that I was one of his first survivors. There are a group of teammates of mine that were part of that initial group. And this was back the late 80s, early 90s. So I was 10 years old. And from that moment, I have goosebumps right now thinking about it. From that moment, I knew that the trajectory of my life was going to change. And although I had graduated from college and I'd been in corporate America, um, lots of really difficult things had happened in that time. At this point, I was in my mid 30s. Um, and I knew that there was a calling on my life. And I knew that I had to come forward. I had never disclosed that to anybody before. So it took me some time to get to the point where I could say it out loud. And when I was ready, I did. I came forward and flew up to Michigan and spoke. And I read my victim impact statement in court in front of the Honorable Judge Aquilina, and that changed the trajectory of my life. And now I am focused on advocacy for survivors. I am focused on empowering women and helping both women and survivors find their voice and really learning how to thrive after abuse. And I think also for me, I am now finally seeing what the vision and purpose of my life is. And I am really excited about what's to come.
Wow.
I don't think
Wow.
that was 30 seconds, but I did my
It's
best.
okay.
Who was
I
counting?
lost track of time. And first of all, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad that you're in a place where you can talk about that. I've got a lot of questions. I'm sure my dad does as well too. I'm just curious, what was it? You said you've never disclosed it at all. So what was it about that 2016 article? Like, if you can remember that was like, now's my time. And who did you share with first? Sorry, there's two questions that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was living with two roommates at the time, two male roommates, who were my best friends at the time. And they were there. And I just said, this is me too. And I think I shared it with them because they were my roommates, so they knew me very well. But also, I knew that once I shared that with my mom, for example, that was going to come with a lot of other emotions that I was going to have to process. Whereas people who were not involved in my life at that point could be there for me in a different kind of way, where I didn't have to almost guard what I was saying because I knew that when I came forward to my mom, she was going to feel guilty. She was going to feel like she didn't protect me. She was going to have questions that I wasn't ready for. So I think when I read that and I realized it, I first said it to people who I was like, okay, it's a different kind of reaction. But when I did read it and I read the specifics of what had happened to her, and it's amazing because if you go back and you listen to some of those victim impact statements and you read some of the articles, it was the same thing. I mean, he used the same methods. And granted, the methods and some of the things changed. I mean, this went on for decades. This went on for decades. And so as he became more forceful and more manipulative and more um brave, honestly, it just changed a little bit, but it was the same things that were happening to everybody. And I know that I had conversations with some of my old teammates too. And it's like when you read that article, it was like, yep, yep. You kind of connected the dots and you're like, okay, I wasn't alone, because that's how most of us felt. We had never had conversations with each other, and we were all experiencing the same things. And so I think there were hundreds of us that when we read that article, it was like, oh my gosh, that's me too. And whether we decided as individuals to disclose it for our own well-being, or because you had a higher calling, a lot of us are now in advocacy. A lot of us are doing these type of things because it's part of our healing process. And I didn't know at the time for me exactly what it was going to mean, but I knew that I had to come forward. And I knew that that was going to lead to something else.
How did you cope all those years before coming to that realization? It's something you live with on a day-to-day basis.
Not well, to be completely honest with you. So I always knew something in my gut told me that something wasn't right. But because this started at such a young age, before puberty,
Sure.
you don't really know your body. You don't understand. This is happening from someone who was my doctor, who was telling me that this procedure was going to take away my back pain. I broke my back when I was 10, continued to work out on it for 6 months before they put me in a back brace. And he was telling me that this thing he was doing to me was going to take away the pain and get me back to competition state quickly. And then that just continued on a daily, weekly basis for months and years. And so it just becomes part of your life. But I knew deep inside that something wasn't right. So I'm a high achiever. Most elite athletes are. You just push. We were taught, push through the pain, don't question authority, do your best. There is no other option if you want to be the best at what you're doing. So I always got good grades. I always achieved everything I set my mind to on an athletic basis until my body broke down. But I also had anxiety, depression. I went through abusive relationship after abusive relationship. I abused alcohol on and off for years. Um, but I was always high functioning. So no matter what I did,
Sure.
I still performed well. In the corporate world, I climbed the ladder. I did all the things. I worked way more than 40 hours a week. Sometimes I had 2 jobs. Like, it was just more and more and more, and focusing outward and not inward. I just, it was all people pleasing. It was all of that. I had to almost prove my worth to other people because I was such a wreck inside.
But it's
And
kind of that strength that brought you through the tube to the other side.
oh, 100%. Yes. It sure did. And I mean, to be very honest, there were times that I should not have made it out. Positions I put myself in because
Sure.
of the alcohol. I should not be here today. And I truly believe that in those times, I remember thinking, why did I survive this? And I kept coming back to, because there is something on this earth I'm supposed to do that I haven't done yet. And I truly believe that we all have a calling on our life. And I'm just now starting to see that. And all those hard times that I've been through and that I've lived through, when, people would be like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. There's a reason that I did, and someone was watching over me. And now it's time for me to turn this around and really help other people get to the point where they can survive and impact so many other lives.
I love that. Well, I'm so glad that you navigated that. So let's talk about, what is that? Like, what is it that you're doing? Like, what was that? I know you talked about briefly before we started recording about, 20 years of therapy didn't help you until now. So
Right.
talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you have navigated that course.
Yeah. So when I went to therapy I also battled eating disorders, lots of these other things. And we never really got down to the root cause, because in the early years, I never disclosed that to even a therapist. Um, but nothing ever, I never found the right person. It was really never, even after I disclosed this, I was pregnant with my son when I disclosed this. Or when I read my victim impact statement in court. And so then I was like, okay, I probably should get some therapy for this. But I honestly never connected with the right person. I tried a couple people and it seemed very like I was going through the motions. And maybe at that time I wasn't even ready to get down to the hard things. Or, maybe it was because I tried EMDR, and I know it's a little bit controversial whether you should do that when you're pregnant or not do it when you're pregnant. I had friends that were pregnant going through the same thing, and their therapist said yes, and some said no. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do any damage to my baby. I'm a new mom, brand new mom. Um, and so even through that, I mean, I think I learned some coping skills, some meditation, some of those things, but never really got allowed myself to feel the feelings because dissociation was kind of my MO. I would just totally dissociate from my feelings at all. Like, wouldn't allow myself to cry, wouldn't allow myself to be mad, just kind of what was autopilot most of my life. So I think for me, last November, I met this phenomenal woman, and her name is Shanda Sumter. Um, Kind of by happenstance through a company that I signed up for through affiliate marketing. And I went to her event in Austin, Texas, and heard her speak. And she is spirit led, which aligns very much with my values as well. And she said, I've got this leadership course that I put on. And I heard some testimonies from some people who had done it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you could just see or hear in their voice. I mean, most of them were in tears
Sure.
at the impact that this made in their life. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I think I'm ready now. My kids are older. I don't have infants at home. I need to start thinking about what my future is looking like. I think I'm ready. And I didn't exactly know what I was signing up for, but I just did it.
It felt right.
And
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I trusted the process. And, it's interesting because that was a huge hurdle for me up until now. Up until I've gone through this leadership is lack of self-trust and lack of self-worth. Those I would say were my biggest challenges, and that drove the decisions in my life. The decisions to be with men who were abusive, to work for men who were abusive, to not walk away, to, be overthinking, overanalyzing my whole life. And so through this leadership class I started in January, it really walked me through the process of facing my abuse and facing how that has had me respond to situations. So this leadership class focuses more on the response and how you choose to be on a daily basis, as opposed to, okay, let's go back and relive the trauma, and let's, talk about your feelings and get it out, and then talk about coping mechanisms. It really just focuses on how you are showing up now and how the abuse has led you to make decisions in the past or show up in the past, whether that's the lack of self-love or the lack of self-trust or um, people pleasing, seeking validation from other people, the fear of judgment, fear of failure. Like, it really looks at it from a different angle. And so that resonated with me for whatever reason. It worked. And it really helped me process a lot of that. I will say that I don't think I'll ever 100% be able to process all of it, but I don't think that's a bad thing either, because what I'm recognizing now is that that happened for me, for a purpose, for my life and for other people's lives. It didn't happen to me. It wasn't because I was a bad person. It wasn't because I did anything wrong. I believe that God put me on this earth and it happened for me to make me a stronger person to help other people. And this class has helped me shift my perspective, and embrace that.
Wow.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible. So, what's next for you? What, you say like your purpose, you say, and listen, I was thinking about, I should probably look this up, the research of the percentage of people who have been through an abusive situation or relationship. But I know you mentioned you went to a retreat recently where trauma is all things. It's not just abuse, it's loss. It's, there's so many different
Yeah.
pieces of trauma. But what's next for you? Like you talk about, you found your purpose, and I love that you're gonna be walking in your purpose. It happened for you. I
Yes.
love that language. So what now?
So I'm working on a couple things. And in true Emily fashion, I don't just do one thing, I do like 100 things at the same time. But a couple of things I'm working on. One of the biggest things is I've always kind of tossed around the idea of becoming a life coach. My mom thinks I would be a phenomenal life coach because I also, since I've become public with this, people come to me all the time. They
Sure.
come to me, they know I'm okay talking about it. They disclose to me, men, women, teenagers, and I help them with the strategies that have worked for me, some suggestions I have just living through it. Um, but life coaching never really did it for me, but I have now decided I'm going to pursue a trauma recovery coaching program, which is, I think, a little bit newer. It's kind of more specific to people who have been through trauma of different kinds. Um, but really, what I see is I'm holding a summit in the fall, an online summit that is going to be interviewing experts in like energy healing and mindset and how to find your voice again, and kind of put the pieces together for people who've been through abuse and through trauma, to help them really thrive after a situation, whether it's long-term trauma like I experienced, or a really scary one-time event. A lot You go through a lot of the same things. You go
Sure.
through the fear and the anger and the grief and the second guessing yourself and all the things. So I'm working on building an online community that's a safe place for trauma survivors. And I'm also working on this trauma recovery coaching certification. That's going to take me a little time, but my one of my goals is to be able to help more people in a more comprehensive way than I have just a one-on-one basis up until now. So that's one thing.
I love it. Listen, there's
And then
obviously a need, and you've got the
yeah.
skills and the tools to help others. And like you said, that's like walking in your purpose, and I love it.
Absolutely. And even just creating a safe space where everyone can come and like help each other, and share struggles and share solutions. I think one thing that I found, and I'll be very honest, is my husband has a really hard time with this. He didn't know about this when we were married. And, from his perspective is like something just came out of left field and here we are.
Yeah.
And not only is that a struggle in our relationship, it's a struggle for him, I'm sure. He doesn't really want to talk about it, which is also hard for me. So it's like things like that. How can spouses or people who have spouses that are resistant to that support each other too? Some spouses are very embracing and involved and all
Sure.
of that, and some are not. Some don't have anyone to lean on at all.
Yeah.
So part of that goal is not only like me providing some help, but also the community of people that come in helping each other.
Well, I think it's really interesting because you mentioned that you're a mom now, right? And just even
Yes.
hearing your story, and I can totally relate to you not wanting to tell your mom because your mom would have felt all those feelings. Like, and at the same time, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is sound horrible. I would literally find him, hunt him down, and kill him. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
would be, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that is like every mom around. Like you can't even. So now
Yep.
as a mom and
Yep.
feeling all the emotions you have being a mom or a parent, anyone that's out there,
Hmm.
curious, how do you navigate like with your children now? I don't know how old they are, but do they
Oh,
know? Will you tell them? Like, how does it change the way that you parent? I mean, it's so I'm like my mind's
oh,
like blowing up.
it's
And like my dad's on here, and I imagine my dad, like
yeah,
I was in gymnastics, not to your level at
yeah.
all. But can you imagine, Dad, what you would have done? I mean, like just thinking about, and that's the thing is
Oh,
it's so often not told because of its, that's the abuse part, a big part. So sorry.
well,
I'm
exactly. And I mean, and one of the things I said in my impact statement, and my dad passed away before this all came out, and I'm so thankful, because it would have killed him inside, like,
Yeah.
because he was part of the medical community at the time. And I mean, he even gave Larry like supplies, like he provided the training table that I was abused on in the gym, like all the things. He wouldn't have been the same person. So I'm glad my dad was not there. But my mom to this day struggle. Like we can't have a conversation. She struggles with it. She can't talk to me about it either. She's refusing to get help. So it's hard for me, but at the same time, I have released her. I said, Mom, you are not responsible for this. Okay. You didn't know. I didn't tell you. And now part of the reason why I feel so compelled to advocate and educate and be involved is because what Larry was doing was grooming. You hear a lot about it
Sure.
now. You didn't hear about it 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but he was the nice guy. He would have conversations with parents and, make us feel good and comfortable. And like, it's a process. And so now another thing I do is I go out and I educate parents, athletes, on the red flags, what to look for, what questions to ask your kids. Consent is huge. In answer to your question, one of the things that I do with my kids is since day one they were born, we talk about consent and who's allowed to touch your body where and what the real names are, the correct names, not, all the things that we throw around for different body parts. But my kids know, even when they go to the pediatrician, that the pediatrician has to ask them to touch their body. And they don't have to hug anybody they don't want to. I'm so big on that. Like your body is your own.
Yeah.
And you are in charge of your body. And you don't ever let anyone do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. So that's one thing. But I will tell you, one of the drivers for me to take this leadership class seriously and really do the inner work that I knew I needed to do was my daughter, who's 3. She's 3 and JJ's 5. They don't know anything about this yet, but one of the reasons why I knew this was the time, and I talked about timing, is because Savannah, who's 3 and she's very verbal and she's very observant, she started to like say things to me like, Mommy, how come you never eat? How
Wow.
come you don't, yeah, like how come you don't do, how come you don't ever, go do things? Well, not in her words, but like basically, how come you never take care of yourself? How come you're always doing things for us? And I mean, I was getting that message very clearly, and she would watch me so intently. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to stop. I have got to stand up for myself. I've got to learn how to love myself. I have to show her that I love myself so that she doesn't follow the same pattern, right? I mean, she's the nurturer of the two of them. She takes care of JJ even though she's younger. Like she'll bring him milk out of the fridge. She'll bring him his clothes in the morning to get dressed, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this girl."
I
I was
love
like,
it.
"I've got
Can
to
she come
teach
to my
her how to
house?
love herself too."
I love
So,
it.
and it's hard. I am now realizing that every single thing I do is going to affect how JJ is as an adult, how Savannah is as an adult, and how they view relationships with themselves and other people.
Yeah.
And so that was really the driver for me to take myself seriously. And I have got to figure out, how I'm going to be, how I'm going to show up in my life for me, for my children, for my family, and for my community. And I think, that's why I was really open to this leadership class and willing to go in 100% and trust the process and do the work because, if not for myself, for my daughter, right or
Emily,
wrong,
oh, I'm
one
sorry,
of
go
those.
ahead.
No.
In the leadership class, I'm just curious.
Yes.
Uh, 2 questions. What was the major theme that kind of got you involved? And at what point during the class did the light
Hey,
bulb
thank
hit
you
you?
for tuning into today's
Oh
What's
my
Your
gosh.
Story podcast.
To learn
Well,
more or share
what
your
really
story,
got
go
me
to
to sign up for it
jamiemarco.com.
really
That's
was this message that I was getting that I was ready for the next step in my life. I was watching
www.jamiemarco.com.
Shanda
And
talk
we will
about
see you next time.
leadership of your life and how you are the author. And my entire life up until this year, I have kind of gone with the flow. I've done things other people wanted me to do because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to
Sure.
go to college. We're supposed to get married. We're supposed to do this. We're supposed to do that. And even if it didn't feel right for me, I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was kind of, and I was also struggling with the CPSD and the nightmares and the flashbacks and the anxiety and the depression and all of these other things. I was in survival. I've been in survival mode for 40 years of my life. What was that's the reality. Like just
You were
keeping my head.
consumed by it. You're consumed by it. You
Yeah.
can't help it. Sure.
Oh, 1,000%. And even not necessarily on the forefront of my mind, but subconsciously and what it was doing to my body and my energy levels. And like, because when you don't process trauma, your body takes it on. Your
Of
body
course.
doesn't forget, right? And I'll share something about that with you right now, just as a side note. I had two miscarriages before JJ. JJ was the first successful pregnancy, and I was pregnant with him when I disclosed this publicly. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't at all. I think I was holding in so much and I my body was not allowing me to have a successful pregnancy
Well,
because there was
it changes your
so
body chemistry, all the
much.
cortisol, all the adrenaline, all
Yeah.
the, no question, the whole
All
chemistry
the
has changed.
things. So I
That's
truly believe that really just that release and the ability to just get that poison out of my body allowed for, okay, now we're ready to go down this road. And even though, a lot was happening when I was pregnant with him, the secret was out, if you will. I released it verbally out to the world. It was out of my body. In some senses. So as far as this goes, like I think I was ready to take control of my life. Listening to her talk, she was abused by her mother's boyfriend, and she now makes millions of dollars a month. I mean, she's a self-made. She's done this on her own, and so I was like, if she can do it, I can do it,
Sure.
right? And she's just a powerhouse. I was like, I want to be that. I want to be that for myself. I want to be that for my daughter. I want to be that for my community. And like I said, like when I came out with this in 2018, something inside of me was like, okay, this is it. Like this is a turning point in your life. I knew it in my gut, but I didn't know what it looked like. Same thing happened in November when I heard her speak. I was like, okay, we're doing this. I don't know what's next, but
But
this
you
is
felt the connection, sure, no question.
there was something. There was and like I said, for most of my life, I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my intuition. I didn't listen to the things that I should have. I didn't walk away from the people who were hurting me.
This
you
is the
know,
first big step in the other direction. You finally
right.
trusted your innocence. Absolute big difference.
it's so
Exactly.
your story. I mean, it's like I could literally talk to you for hours. Like I'm so I'm a very inquisitive child. My dad will tell you as a kid, I was always asking like 1,000 questions all the time, which obviously led to me to my path, what I do now. But my biggest question for you right now that's just top of mind is that listen, you're out there wanting to help people, empower people. I love that you have found a coach and a leadership program that's giving you
Yeah.
that next step for you. And maybe there's someone out there that's listening right now that
Yeah.
is in a situation where they don't know what to do. They're not
Right.
told anybody. They've not,
Yeah.
they just are hearing your story or they're probably Googling your impact statement. They're, like trying to like think about what it is. What would be your one piece of advice? I know that's probably hard, but something that you would say to somebody who's listening right now that could be questioning whether or not they're in an abusive relationship or know that they're in an abusive relationship or know somebody that is. Like, what would be something that you would say, do this now? Or what is that? I mean, I don't even know. What would you say would be that advice?
Number one, I would say is you're never alone. There are always people, and you can contact me. There are always people that will help you. Wherever you are, there is a safe space. There are resources. And if you're having trouble finding them, um, you know, come to me. I would say come to me. I will provide my contact information. I
That's
will
great.
help whoever it is that wants the help to get it. But know that you're not alone. Okay. Know that you will be believed, at least by me, because I will believe you. And we will get through it together. And if anyone also is interested in attending my summit, then they can contact me. I'll put you on the list as soon as we have the registration open. You can register for it. But there is a light. There is a light. I know, especially if you know you're in an abusive situation, it is so, so scary because as we know, as a lot of us know, sometimes the devil you know
Sure.
is easier to deal with than the devil you don't know. And, you know, that's why I didn't disclose it for so long, to be honest. You know, especially when you're a child and you're accusing or questioning something an adult is doing, a very high-ranking adult in society, right? Doctors, you know, priests, teacher, I mean, people that are respected in the public eye. It's so scary because who's gonna, you know, you don't know how people are gonna react, but the reality is, and we know that the statistics are horrible as far as percentages, and those are only the ones that are publicly disclosed.
Sure.
And it's sexual abuse, domestic violence, both. I mean, this is an epidemic. It is.
No
And
question.
it's something that is at least now being talked about more, which is good because we can talk about the red flags. We can talk to kids about consent. We can talk about prevention. We can do all those things. But the reality is, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to people you know,
Like one in
probably in your
four.
family,
Yeah.
for sure in your neighborhood. So, what I would say is, you are going to be believed. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are resources and people who care about you that will help you walk through that, and find someone who's a safe person to tell. And sometimes that safe person is someone you've never met before. And that's what I've learned. The people that have told me, I mean, there's so many people that I literally just met, literally a man at the beach. You know, we started talking, told my story. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this happened to me. Never told anybody before, but I feel so good to get it out." And I mean, I've not talked to this person since. But, you know, for him, that made a difference.
Sure.
So, you know, if it's not you, if it's a friend that you know, just be a safe space, you know, hold that space for them. Know that, you know, tell them that you will never share their secret because that's a scary thing too. But we can all help other people in some way.
I love that. So I am definitely listener. We will get all of Emily's information about the summit, about the best way to contact you, everything, all that good stuff, because that's such an awesome thing that you're doing. And like you said, sometimes it's someone you don't even know that there's that comfort. That's why bartenders get all the great stories, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why Sam Malone, for those that it's a super old reference, but was like, you know, people go in and tell them all these stories. But you know, that is the thing is that sometimes it's easier to tell people that don't know you. So I love that you're putting that out
Yes.
there. And like I
Yes.
said, your story is incredible, and I'm so grateful that you came on to talk with us. Dad, any last final thoughts from
I
you?
just, I just admire your strength. You've given up all your victimhood, and you're
Yeah.
truly a living inspiration. I think, and you found out what you want to do. And people do they need the help, need the assistance. Meeting someone like you can turn around the whole life.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping is, you know, I've done this, like I said, just with friends and family and now random people that live in my community, but I want to be able to help so many more people. And that's why I want to create this online community that can help each other and I can help as well. And we can just learn together because the reality is I still am learning. There are things that trigger me all the time, but I'm learning how to work through it better, and I want to pass that along to other people. And the only other thing I just want to also mention, which is something that came up, I think I told you about this, but um, after this all came out, and there were some lawsuits with Michigan State University, and there's USA Gymnastics, and then very recently the FBI. Um, when that money was paid out to survivors, I also had a vision that maybe one day we could do something really amazing and impactful. with that money, not just, take care of ourselves, take care of our families, get the help we need, all the things. And in November, when I was at this event, I put it out there to a woman who is a wealth coach and a financial literacy educator. And I said, look, this is what I really want to do. I don't know how to do it. I love your ideas. And so she came back to me about 2 months ago, and we are working on a deal in Puerto Rico, just outside of San Juan, where we are purchasing a property. It's got 80 residential units and several commercial spaces. We're going to be renovating them and then working with a nonprofit that we are starting as well, that is going to help women who are aging out of the foster care system. A lot of whom have children already. And it's going to be like a transitional housing for them from 18 to 20 to 21. We're going to help them learn life skills. We're going to give them some skills for entrepreneurship or to just work out in the workplace so that they can learn how to support themselves and their children if they have children. And I'm really excited about it because I think this is something that can help them break the cycle and get out of that foster care, because we all know, the statistics on that as well. A lot of those women, a lot of those men, fall into drugs, fall into sex trafficking and all the things. So like for me, it's like a prevention, breaking the cycle. And so that's one of my newest projects as well. And we're hoping that this is just the first one. We're hoping to learn to put together a system to do this here and then to do this other places around the world.
I think we're going to hear a lot more from Emily in the future.
I think so. Keep me posted on that. I would love to help if there's any way I can help. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that life brought us together and that we are connected. And I think you are an incredible human. And it's amazing. The world is very lucky to have you. And I'm so glad that you have found like your path and realize that things happen sometimes, for us, not to us. I love that.
Right.
I love that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
And Maya, you've got incredibly great inner strength. It's great to see.
Yeah. And
Thank
that'll
you
be a great
so
lesson
much.
for your daughter. That'll be an incredible, she's gonna, and just so you know, mine's a little bit older than that. She remembers nothing under the age of 5. So just know that like you're getting it good. Right at 3, you're good. Cause I'm like, don't you
Perfect. You got a little more
remember
time.
checking it? Like I literally said to her the other day, we were talking about when she was in daycare, and it was the woman that was at the front desk every single day that she saw her all the time. I was like, so-and-so. And she's like, who is that, mommy? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now. So here's my lesson. Whatever's happening now, you've got time to make up for that. You found like your place, and I think it's awesome. And please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. I'm so grateful that we've had a chance to just get a snippet of your story. And I'm sure in the future we'll have you back on to catch up and see how that summit goes as well.
I love that. And possibly, as it gets closer, maybe we can work together too to invite some more of our community here.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for tuning into today's What's Your Story podcast.
To learn more or share your story, go to jamiemarco.com. That's www.jaimemarco.com. And we will see you next time.